welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I am joined by Shad, and Matt will not be here this week. He is traveling for the holidays, but we brought in a couple of special guests. Shad, why don't you give a
Let me
shout out to our guests here?
let me prime this for just a moment. Tonight's tonight's event or tonight's episode is what is it? Brad, you between you, me, and Matt, it's if not it's almost 30 years worth of fandom for the three of us.
You mean
And
combined?
so,
Or...
I mean, on average.
oh yeah, Matt, like you and I'm like
You and I are about the same.
27 years, and Matt's about like 32 years, I think.
Yeah, so right around 30 years. But the thing that happens is you can lose in all of that, in all of everything we've seen and how jaded and all that sort of stuff we can get with what we've seen. We can kind of it's refreshing to talk to some folks who are fresh to watching this particular form of entertainment. And so tonight are two friends of mine that had the misfortune of me dragging them into this about 6 months ago. This would be Aiden and Rowan. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Very much so.
Yeah, this is a couple that comes to us currently out of the American Eastern Seaboard. But, you know, this whole thing, like I said, this is less than 6 months in the cooking. And so it's kind of fun to break this down and look at it and say, you know, hey, what's your take on it? Where are you coming at it from? So, Brad, did you have any other prep stuff you wanted to do, or do I just dive at the first question?
Well, I wanted to kind of do the basic question you always ask. So, before Shad opened this can of worms on you, did either of you have any like previous experience with wrestling, or like did you have let's say like a preconceived notion of it before you actually started watching it?
I'll open with that one because I think there's something to be said for the fact that, at least in the Western world, and I know in other areas, to a certain degree, wrestling's kind of pervasive. I think a lot of people will be able to name wrestlers even if they don't watch it because so many other mediums also are touched by wrestling, whether it's, you know, actors in Hollywood. I remember Hulk Hogan being in movies and going to see those movies as a young person when I wasn't into wrestling. So I've always been aware of it. And of course, you have Andre the Giant in Princess Bride, which is a classic. You have certain personalities that have perhaps affected fashion. I may perhaps at one time have been an aficionado of Hot Topic, and a certain Jeff Hardy may have influenced some of that. So I think I've always been aware of wrestling, and there are big names like Undertaker. Everybody knows who The Undertaker is if you live in a certain part of the world. But it wasn't for me, and it wasn't until 6 months ago when Shad got us into all of this that I actually cared about the language of wrestling and therefore about wrestling for its own sake. So that was where I was at.
You heard her here. This is your fault.
Shad. Oh, I know. I'm aware. Like I'm not sorry.
Nor should you be. Like to give my answer on the question. So prior to meeting you, my exposure to wrestling as a whole boiled down to, I think it was it on the Sega? Like a couple games as a teenager where I remember explicitly, I would sit in my buddy's room, we would boot up, I'm sure it was the Sega, I don't remember what the title was, and we'd play baseball by taking one of the bots, dragging him out of the ring. One of us would grab something from the stands to use as the bat, while the other guy would grab him and fling him down the concrete, and we'd just see who could strike out versus who could hit the home run. And that literally was the sum total of my exposure. I've come into this from a position of knowledge purely by osmosis. Like, I could tell you kind of like what she was saying. I was familiar that Andre the Giant existed because of the Princess Bride. I knew Macho Man through Spider-Man and through the Slim Jim commercials. that was basically it.
We've
Really.
also always had mutual friends who were into it, but because it wasn't something we cared about, it was just like, oh yeah, that's a thing that these friends do, and that was as far as it went.
I always considered it just to be sweaty dudes hugging in the ring and like, ugh. It legit never had any appeal to me. The machismo never really caught on. So
Well, let me tell you a story. So I went. There's a promotion called Ring of Honor, which you obviously know because you watched the FTR Briscoes. But I went to the Ohio Fairgrounds in this building with no air conditioning, and it was 95 degrees out, and it was a very, very stinky day.
ooh.
Yeah. That happens. You go to about any live show. It doesn't matter how big or small the production is. It's going to happen. It's like going to any large event. It's going to happen. It's just I don't think there's quite as much beer drunk as it is at like football games. So
I've
it
had
doesn't
some.
get covered up.
I went to a different show. This is my other one I always tell. It was Ring of Honor again. I don't know what it is about Ring of Honor this, but so they were just like, your standard folding chairs. I was sitting there, and the guy next to me, I swear, weighed like 500 pounds. So I'm sitting at the show for 4 hours, and like half of him is on me, and I'm just like, why do I do this to myself?
Yeah.
I am taking half of this man's sweat home with me.
Yes.
Yep. I mean, that sounds like my experience going to rock concerts. So,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But like you said, any big event.
So here's the question. Brad started us off with kind of the background question. And what I want to go next to is what is it, broad sense, overview, that sort of thing, that got your attention, that got you, like, about the thing itself, not like me not shutting up about it pervasively, but what about it, in watching it, like, what was the thing that caught your attention?
So you kind of cut off my answer before I could give it because.
Oh, sorry.
No. What I mean is that it was your enthusiasm was infectious. That's what was the initial hook. Like it is always easier to break the ice into something new when there's somebody who is enthusiastic about it in a earnest and good-natured way. Like you can get creepily over enthusiastic, and that's kind of a turnoff. But you were very much this is the cool thing I like, and I want you to see if you like it too. But once that initial hook was in, and you started kind of reeling us in, so the first event that I actually watched, you were right there riding shotgun, was Bryan Danielson v. Swerve Strickland. I kind of showed up halfway through that card, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, so...
Okay. Yeah, that was all in Wembley. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of getting interesting. Like, before that, I'd walked in on a watch party where Minoru Suzuki was trading chops with, I don't even remember who, and I'm like, what is going on here? This is dumb. But watching Swerve and Danielson just go ham at it, I'm like, I can get behind this degree of ham because it's ham that is doing a lot of really good... It's a lot of good theater going on here. Because they were playing up the crowd, they were playing up the audience, but also they were playing up the fact that Danielson's family was there. Swerve was just such an impeccable douche of a bad guy, which really sold it. So I'm like, okay, I can see why people are enjoying this, and that's kind of where it started, where the initial spark of interest came in.
Okay.
Aiden's touched on a lot of what's similar for me, and it's also, if it's all right to talk about it, is what turned me off when I was younger versus what turned me on now. When I was younger...
Oh, dear Lord, did someone subject you to Big Daddy versus Giant Haystacks matches?
No, it was something much simpler, and what's really important to bear in mind is young me was an idiot. This is very important.
I mean, young people in general.
Yeah, it's the prerogative of being young. As you've probably noticed from the accent, I grew up in the UK, and the UK was blessed to have access when I was a young person to a lot of what WWE was doing. That was all being brought over, but it was very commercial. And when you bear in mind how British culture is compared to American culture, just wholeheartedly borrowing the advertisements from the US and porting them to the UK, it felt very manufactured. And that was kind of a turn off for me. You then add in some very over the top fans, and it just wasn't for me. Fast forward to the modern day, and I now have access to somebody who is passionate, knowledgeable, and knows how to listen to the sorts of things that I talk about and go, I think this is the right jumping off point for you. So you've got the passion, and you've got sort of a guide into, hey, look, I know this thing is big and complicated, and there's all these terms and people you don't know, but let's start here and look at this cool thing. And I think the big moment for me, I was already interested because of stuff that I was involved in with you already, Shad, with what you were doing. But the big moment for me was that same show Aiden was just talking about, and it was Swerve's facial acting that just made me go, oh, because I love theatre. I absolutely love theatre. When I still lived in the UK, I'd go up to the West End whenever I could afford it and watch the shows up there, really watch how the actors got involved with the children, all of the visual aspects of storytelling. And as an adult, storytelling is very important to me. And wrestling has its own unique form of delivering those same concepts in a medium that you don't get anywhere else. And it was literally just this one particular moment where the camera moved around and Swerve just looked into the camera and I went, yes, I would like more of this, please.
I mean, it didn't hurt that match in particular, because she was watching it over my shoulder. I was watching it, and I'm like, and then she kind of poked in. It's like, what the heck? Who is that? I don't know, Swerve something or another. She's like, his facial acting is really good. But the point I'm trying to get at is that whole match, they were playing up, like I said, kind of the audience, the family element, but there was the interactivity that, considering how much you've talked my ear off about stage productions you've been part of, I think Rocky Horror is the one that comes to mind, where they really play the crowd and play the crowd strong.
Yeah, I could also go on TED Talks about Little Shop of Horrors, but it's
There
that
you
sort
go.
of grandiose storytelling and how you deliver emotion to an audience that made me go, yeah, this is what I'd like to know more about, please.
You guys had the benefit of coming in with a match with one of the best in the world right now and one of the best of all time having a match with each other. Like, that's that's kind of cheating, because it's setting the bar way too high to start
I think
with.
that certainly helps. I mean, that's another thing that perhaps is worth discussing is as I understand it, the breadth of what is available to people maybe getting interested now, or even to those who've been long-term fans, that there's so much more out there than I knew about when I was younger. And I don't know when all of these different shows came on board, but AEW I absolutely love. They have so many elements going on that I'm like, yes, this is great. More, please.
I mean, to kind of piggyback off of that, there's enough stuff going on that if it wasn't for having a friend who can kind of steer in the direction of, hey, watch this, you probably won't. There's just too much for me to step into and not go,
Yeah.
especially when going to which one is it? WWF, I think, is what we were looking at. Where
WWE.
the WWE. There you go. I see. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I still get all of the acronyms confused. I don't know any of the people. I just know this looked awesome versus, like, with WWE, the camera work in the match that we watched with them was like, I'm gonna get motion sick from all the cuts. And it's having that high note to start. I mean, I'll put it into context of something that I'm a lot more familiar with, tabletop wargaming. Generally speaking, what you want to do is put on a good intro game for a new player so they get a taste of it, and give them maybe a slight advantage to give them that initial rush so that they can, scrape the win, or at least have a really memorable game. and that's kind of how you get that initial hook. If you just roll them in with a competitive list and you just kind of steamroll them, then, well, you don't develop the interest.
Yeah, it's
Same
not
thing.
fun.
You got to provide that good experience initial, otherwise you're not gonna get anybody hooked.
So the
And
reason
wrestling's, I was gonna say
go ahead, Matt,
wrestling's
I'm sorry.
very special in the fact that there, even if you go back in history, there's like dozens of promotions. There's, back in the day, like they were more regional, and they all have their own personalities. And that's what I tell a lot of people is like, if you're not enjoying like WWE or AEW, go looking because you'll find something that's tailored to your tastes.
Brad, if we were to run down stuff that was readily available right now, WWE, AEW, New Japan,
DDT, Tokyo Joshi Pro, Stardom. Are we just going by new stuff? MLW's on YouTube.
I was just going to kind of go contemporary.
Was that an anime you just listed?
No,
Because it
no.
sounded like it.
Okay,
That's
so
the thing.
Tokyo Joshi Pro and Stardom are Japanese women's promotions. So the entire roster's women. They do have some English commentary to them. But it's a different flavor. If you like anime, you would probably like them because that's like how the flair of the wrestlers in those two companies. DDT is like an American style promotion, but it's kind of satirical.
Yeah.
So
DDT has a lot of silly.
Well, it's like 90% serious, but then there's like 10% silly.
Okay, yeah, that's DDT is the place that. What's the name of that title, Brad? You know which one?
Oh, the Iron Man metalweight title. It's like a 24/7 title, and like inanimate objects have won it. The belt's won itself at one point.
Yeah,
That sounds amazing.
It's
fantastic.
Very
and I can
silly.
only imagine that the advent of the internet and streaming, etc., has allowed for a lot more of these things to have much greater reach, which makes it a great time to go, yeah, okay, there's probably something out there you're going to enjoy.
Well, the thing that you can do now is, and what I think is really great about wrestling is most, like New Japan, you can just go on New Japan World and pay like $8 a month and you get all the shows live. And on
AEW is going to start on Max in January. WWE is on Peacock. God save you for going through Peacock.
They're going to Netflix though, so that should be better.
That's true. Well, Raw is, but the network's still on Peacock.
I thought they were going to move that over too.
If they are, it's not immediate. I don't know what the time frame is. But another thing on Netflix, if you want something that's outside of the realm of typical fare, Lucha Underground is on Netflix.
I was waiting for that to get brought up.
Lucha Underground's a little different.
I love Lucha Underground, and it's your fault because you showed me Penta, and then I went down a rabbit hole, and then I grabbed one of my friends and was like, "Sit there, we're doing this." And yeah, I'm trying to find time with Aiden over the holidays so I can pin him in a corner and be like, "Look at this stuff I found," which is to say, stuff I came to because of Shad.
It's a fascinating
I'm
promotion.
Fascinated by it. Yeah, fascinated is the right word.
Because you'll never see. I've never seen anything shot like it at all. It's a unique oddity. Like the angles get really out there and stuff, but it's more like what would I say? It's kind of like it's more like a TV show that just happens to be wrestling than wrestling.
Yes,
I would
it
say.
strikes me very much as a sort of Spanish language drama that happens to be in English. But what got me with Lucha Underground and made me go, I need to just watch all of this. The first one that I watched, it was Penta, and I can't remember who he was fighting, but it was like the third match he'd had in a row or something. And
the triad or whatever they're called.
Yeah. But what got me was that I don't know why they bothered having a ring, because they certainly didn't spend any time in it, and it was fabulous. I enjoyed every single minute of it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to pull a pivot real quick. I asked you kind of high level, what is it that gets to you? And you've kind of touched on this, but let's go ahead and put a direct name to it. What would you say the styles of wrestling that really speak to you are?
Ooh. That I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna struggle a little bit to try and put a pin in it on the basis of it's like being at a buffet and saying, hey, of all of these options, what is it that you're here for? I'm like, well, depends on where in the meal I'm at, man.
I didn't say one. I said,
Fair.
what are the styles that appeal to you?
So I'm gonna harken back to one of the ones that you've mentioned, one of the ones that you introduced us to, which was the Lucha Bros versus Young Bucks. That kind of the just ridiculously over the top technical shenanigans they pull with the flips and the throws and just the cheeky bullshit they got up to. The moment where you've got, I think it was Penta had one of the Young Bucks and the other had oh god, this is where my inability to remember names.
Ray Phoenix.
Thank you. And they just kind of look up because they're both on the apron. They both have their respective counterpart ready to slam, and they just look at each other like, "Oh, okay." And then, bam! It's like, okay, this is entertainment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got that, and because I'll admit I'm a sucker for just crazy flyers and high flying shenanigans. But at the same time, again, the sheer just kind of emotive acting of Danielson versus Strickland. I'd be remiss of me to not comment on the whole thing going on between Strickland and Page. And just kind of all of the, I don't want to call it melodrama. It is, but it's very tight melodrama in the fact that it doesn't feel excessive at any point in time. It's like, oh, what are they going to do next? What is the next thing that they are going to beat each other senseless with? What is the next level of audacity we are going to hit? It's like, what was the one match, Love? It was Bryan Danielson again, and again, I'm bad with names, where at the end, the challenger basically just is on his knees.
Perry?
Yeah, Jack Perry.
Yeah.
There you go. And just him on his knees like, come and hit me. You won this, but I'm going to sit here and goad you the entire time. I'm like, man, that is a statement, bro.
And that spot you called out in the Lucha Brothers Young Bucks match is one that Brad called out. Like, we reviewed that on here. I think it was my match of the year for that year. We reviewed that on here, and Brad immediately called that out as one of his favorite spots too.
It's hard not to.
Have you showed them
that's
Danielson Omega yet?
Not yet.
No.
I didn't want to blow the load too early, you know.
Ooh.
So we've got some more stuff to look forward to with you then.
Yes. So, Rowan, what about you? Same thing, or?
For me, what matters most is that those moments of storytelling. So I'm quite happy to see whoever's in the ring if they've got something to tell me. That said, if I have to go for, what am I really enjoying watching with the wrestlers themselves and what's going on? Lucha stuff is great. It's really, really fun. But one of the first matches that you showed me, Shad, was the Briscoes versus FTR. And it wasn't just for how bloody that match ended up by the end, which I absolutely love because I am irrepressibly into edgy stuff. But it was just so well coordinated with such a smooth flow that I was just watching moments to moment, and it was very intense. It was very smooth. The way it was shot also definitely helped with that, but it was just how intense it was between these two sides going back and forth. And then you had all the extra storytelling at the end, but it felt very just sort of simple but on point. And that just had me engaged because, admittedly, I'm a bit naughty. I don't really listen to any of the commentators when I'm watching wrestling stuff. I'm not interested in that. I'm just watching what's going on in front of my eyes and the visual storytelling that I'm getting. And that sort of just raw, simple impactfulness was just great. And I really loved that. I'm just like, yes, can we just have some more of these people grappling and doing their thing? This is great.
I do have a question, actually, to pose in return, because ever since watching that particular one, I am mind blown by the fact that throughout that entire thing, at no point did they get the chains tangled up to the point where they couldn't keep doing. How much they had to have rehearsed that before the show. How?
No, they didn't.
How?
So, from having a chain match, I can tell you that one of the biggest things in your mind during a chain match is, where is this damn thing? And so what happened was that you had all four of these guys watching where those chains went and following them. Because whenever you have a chain match, you have to follow the chain or else it gets tangled up on stuff. If it goes over the top, you go over the top. If it goes through the middle, you go through the middle. And so they are watching it the entire time because they're aware of me and Talk Day. They're aware of where it is, which is why they were able to do that.
No doubt that's part of what added to the intensity that made me go, yeah, that was absolutely great.
Yeah, because every moment of that was smooth as butter. They just, at no point did they get caught tangled unless it looked like they meant to do so. Also, I agree, words are hard. It's cool, man.
Don't worry, you'll see some matches where the gimmick screws up. Like there's an old ECW match. Do you know who Sabu is yet? Have you been introduced to him yet?
No, but I have Google.
Okay, so part of
just wait.
So part of his charm as like a wrestler is his matches can just come off the rails because if something gets messed up, he can get a little focused on getting it right in the middle of a match, or he'll forget like he's eliminated himself from like battle royals before he's supposed to win. But there's this one ECW show where the table they're supposed to use for a spot, the legs break. And instead of getting another table, he gets obsessed with like getting this table, and he derails it so hard that their opponents are even trying to help them like get the leg to work right.
Yeah. I know exactly which match you're talking about too.
This guy isn't Sabu. He's like, I don't know if I would say it or not, but he looks like Arabic Machete.
Yeah, that's Sabu.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Sabu. Yeah.
Okay, so I am looking at the right guy.
Yeah.
I'll get you some links, okay?
Please.
Sabu
he's a noted figure of the 90s. Like there's a mystique to him, and I'm not even kidding when I say there's a mystique to him. And part of it is like the matches just might derail, but he was kind of a star of the 90s.
Fair.
he kind of
He's a one of a kind in wrestling, I would say.
Yeah. He was one of the people that kind of pushed the more hardcore style because he consistently did it, but usually did it in a way where it was done properly. It's kind of hard to quantify. I'll have to get you some links, but
Yeah, no, that's reasonable.
So, Brad, I don't want to just run off with it. So, if you got anything you want to throw in here, just make sure you take your shot. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you're good.
So, we kind of talked about what some of the stuff that appealed to you. There's the thing I got to ask: of what you have seen so far, what have you not enjoyed?
That's very easy, and I actually hinted at it earlier. A shitty camera control completely breaks the entire thing. Like, the whole damn thing falls apart if all we're getting is jump cuts and poor camera management. It's
I think I can sum up the problem in 3 words.
Shoot.
Roman Reigns' cheekbones.
Oh, no.
I don't know how much they're paying his cheekbones specifically, but let's just say I feel like the focus is in the wrong place.
So I'm just gonna say it, like, compare the what was it, the 2000s to the 2010s, where you've got action movies that are obsessed with the whole shaky cam to replace actual decent cinematography. I could name a couple movies that in theaters almost made me motion sick just because they're looking like they stuffed the camera in a paint mixer. Some of the stuff that we were watching when we were looking at WWE was feeling very similar. And it's like, wow, I am not entirely sure what's happening. I want to buy in, but if I can't see what's happening, I can't buy in.
Their top production guy was there for like 30 years, and he just caused a lot of problems. It's his style.
Mm.
Their product kind of stagnated appearance-wise because of him. I think they've gotten, like, when I've watched it more recently, I don't feel it's as bad. Like, it's not as
Okay.
stark.
No, it's
But like
They-
stuff you're seeing probably is like what when they're like spinning the camera around and stuff, and like, you know, if like someone's hitting someone with a chair, they're like going up and down, like that sort of stuff they used to do. Like I hated
And
that.
just a lot of jump cuts as well, from
That's it.
here to the crowd, to here, to the crowd,
Yeah.
to here, back to the crowd.
Yep.
Just let me focus on something for a minute. But I
Yeah.
think that if I was sort of to give a more sane answer than just the three words, I think part of it comes down to marketing as well. I feel like, and maybe this is just me, but I feel like WWE is aimed at a slightly younger audience. And as a result, it doesn't trust people to have a full attention span. Whereas the stuff that I like, which typically is coming out of AEW, is where most of the stuff I like has come from. It knows it's advertising at adults and is happy to let you just look and figure it out for yourself. Here you go, watch the thing, draw your own conclusions.
I mean, that's something that we've discussed because we both, for years now, decades now, have as a hobby just enjoyed creative writing and narrative and storytelling as a whole. And there's the whole concept of respect for your audience is a really big thing. To respect your audience, you have to know who your audience is. And she just kind of hit that one on the head.
yeah.
I can give you another specific answer, though, if you want, stuff that's just kind of been
I'm listening.
literally anything Monet has been in.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. It is. That is interesting. Mercedes Monet doesn't hit for you, huh?
Not in the slightest. It's like, wow, I had enough of this in high school. I was the nerdy kid that got picked on by all the freaking popular kids, and that's what this reminds me of. This isn't like, you're not a heel that I find compelling or interesting. You're just an asshole.
Yeah,
They
you
really-
hate her, right?
Not in the way that they want me to.
He
Because
hates her in the way that makes him go, I'll go and get a drink and come back when this is
Okay.
over and watch the next thing.
exactly.
Which,
Yeah.
for me, that hits with some of the backstage stuff with certain personalities as well. I'm like, I don't care about this backstage interview and the persona we're putting on here, but I will absolutely pay attention when I see you back in the ring again.
Yeah, it's like going back to the Young Bucks. I hate the hell out of their guts after what I've seen of them. But at the same time, in a way of, okay, I want to see what happens next, because please tell me somebody is going to beat that man's face in. It's very two different kinds of, I hate seeing this person on screen. You've got the one where it's like, tell me when the next match is on. And then you've got the, please break him.
Have you shown them the video of them super kicking the like 8-year-old?
No,
you
what?
Yes.
Yes.
No, but now come
to you.
on.
They did this little indie show. This is probably like 10 or 12 years ago. So this kid was like a big fan, so they brought him in the ring, and
For his birthday.
yeah, for his birthday. And then like they attack his dad, and then the kid like kind of kicks him a bit, and they double super kick him, and the kid like sold for him and stuff because he was like a big fan. So it's just a funny
It was
little thing.
amazing, yeah.
Oh my
That is amazing. I used to teach. I am down for seeing an 8-year-old get super kicked.
So the thing, this is what's interesting to me, is because like Brad and Matt and I, we watch it and we're like, oh man, he's healing it up so good. Like I'm enjoying watching him healing it up. For how many pearl necklaces is Matt Jackson wearing this week, kind of thing.
Well, I've always said I appreciate someone that grows their hair and facial hair a certain way just to get people to hate them.
Yeah.
There was a dude that I used to wrestle with who when he started wrestling, he was committed to being a heel, and he's like, okay, his thought process was, what do I hate? I hate this emo shit. So he grew out the emo flip and used Bullet for my Valentine as his entrance and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, amazing. I love
people-
my Valentine.
Hated his guts. It was bad enough at one show, this kid out of the crowd goes, "Those pants are gayer than I am," and we're like, "Is that what you meant to say?" But the amusing part that made it even better was that all of the guys that came to the show hated him, but their girlfriends were kind of into it, which meant they hated him even more.
Now,
Oh, that's so good.
on the subject of knowing your audience, there
Yep.
you go.
Yep. So
And
You know,
that's the thing, man. If you sell it well,
I actually have a really good recommendation for you guys after the show if you want to YouTube.
Shoot.
Since you're from the UK, I think you'll appreciate him. So there's a guy wrestling in like the 70s, 80s into the 90s called Adrian Street. He's from the UK, but he does kind of like a very kind of, what would you say, like
a Boy George kind of gimmick.
yeah.
he's Welsh.
Mhm.
Yeah. He's from like a coal mining town. And there's like, if you look
Yeah.
up, there's a
Okay.
picture of him because he hated his dad. And like, he went just to, like, as a fuck you to his dad and like the town. He like just went, like, and like, is like made his
Full
outfit-
gimmick.
Yeah. Full gimmick as gay as like possible. And it's just a picture of them in this,
With-
like, this coal
With the
mine.
title belt next to his dad and a bunch of his dad's co-workers in front of the mine elevator.
And this will,
Oh boy.
but this is the thing with him though, is so he was doing like a very gay gimmick, but in the 80s he managed to get people in like Alabama to cheer him as like a face
Nice.
after it turned.
That's fantastic.
That is great. I'm
But-
looking. The moment you gave the name, I threw him up on Wikipedia, and I can see it, which is funny because that face makes it look like he's about to belt out "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all."
Yeah.
So that makes it even funnier.
And the other thing that in hindsight we don't think about is if in the 70s and 80s you were going to be doing a gay gimmick all around the US, you were going to be tough enough to deal with what you were going to catch off of it. And he
Yeah,
absolutely
that's a
was.
very different social climate to today.
And
Yeah.
if you want to love him even more, he beat up Jimmy Savile at one point.
Oh well, yeah, easily. Good job.
Rowan's about to put him on, nominate him for sainthood
What was
with
the
that.
story like? They were doing some work thing and Savile was being like a prick, so he just beat him up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like-
wonderful.
He did. I don't even know. I don't even remember the whole thing. But he's just, he was just being an asshole. So I just gave it to him.
Yeah, you can look
And
it up on
I'm
YouTube.
like-
He tells the story, I think.
Yeah.
Oh
So-
wow! I
Yep.
just saw a picture of him in costume. Oh wow!
And you know he's tough because like he worked in like Memphis and stuff in the 80s, and he would just walk into the crowd with no care. Because I think they said like people would try him because of his gimmick, and they would quickly learn that they made a horrible mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of already answered this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for. Okay. So what I was going to say is, what could you point to as a match or matches that set the hook? But you already answered that. So my follow-up is going to be, what is the match or matches that reeled you in? Like you already said that Danielson Swerve set the hook. What are the ones that reeled you in with that? Like after that?
I mean, I at least for my part, I already said is after that after that night, I hit you up saying, okay, throw some stuff at me. I am interested. I would like to know more. And you threw, actually, technically, it wasn't me you threw it at. It was her, but you threw it
It
at
was going to both of you.
yeah, it was the Briscoe Bros dog collar, double dog collar, and it was Lucha Underground, or not Lucha Underground, Lucha Bros versus Young Bucks. Which those were the point where, okay, the hook's in. That was where you started reeling it in, and then from there it's just like okay, which even got us to start watching stuff that was apart from your recommendations, because now we've been talking to some of our buddies who are long-standing wrestling fans in other social circles, longtime friends of ours who are like, all right, here's our recommendation, which some were hits, some were misses, some were, how is that man physically alive? You know
What
the
were
one I'm
some-
talking about.
I'm not sure I do. Which one are you thinking of?
As soon as our long-standing friends knew that we were getting interest, they were like, "So, have you seen the Undertaker Mankind fight?"
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which
Undertaker-
one? Oh, you're talking about Hell in
Yeah,
a Cell. Okay.
That one.
yeah,
The one
oh
where I
God,
went
yeah.
off on a 20-minute health and safety rant. That one.
Yes. Yes.
Dude,
I
I can't watch that again because as a match, it sucked. As a spectacle, it was like, holy crap.
yeah.
The roof wasn't supposed to happen, but I went to. He did a one-man show for a number of years that I went to, and he
Holy
was talking
Mankind.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when he goes through the top of the cage, he's totally knocked out, and so they're buying time, and obviously Undertaker choke slams Terry Funk out of his boots. And he says, "Well, I wake up and there's just a pair of shoes sitting in front of me, and I don't even know what's going on."
yeah.
So
Yeah.
go on.
They were aware of everything that they were going to do up until he went through the top of the cell.
So I sat down after that a couple days later, and because YouTube recommended me a follow-up video that was Foley and Taker sat on a couch just kind of talking through, hey, this is kind of how it went by our best recollection watching through the match. And some of the revelations they dropped, I'm like, how do you people function? Because Undertaker had a broken foot and he climbed on top of that. What kind of maniac are you, for one? And for two, the revelation that it was just zip ties keeping the roof of the cage on was terrifying. They meant to go through the cage in the first place. It's just it happened a lot faster than they expected. Like, what?
But they didn't tell anybody they were going to go up there.
Yeah, they don't expect you because the kind of the concept of that is you're not supposed to be on top of the cage. You're not supposed to leave the cage. So
yeah, you're not supposed to be outside of the cell. And pretty much every match, like the very first one was Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Bad Blood, and the cell was Shawn Michaels couldn't run away, DX couldn't get in. It's what it was supposed to be. And then they violated that immediately by debuting Kane. And then I think the next one was Mankind Taker.
Yeah.
And almost everyone after that, the game was, how do you get outside the cage? How do you get outside the cell? Which is that's undermining the entire point of having the damn cell.
Yeah.
That's kind of the problem with cage matches, though, going back, is it's so no one can interfere or this and that, and then someone always gets involved.
Yeah, someone always tries to interfere. Okay, let's see.
The Lucha Bros Young Bucks, where they chuck the bag with the shoe in it over the top. But, I mean, I just got to say, from the perspective of the guys who are supposed to be on the medical and safety side of that is horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's you probably haven't seen it, but there's one Raw where Jerry Lawler had a heart attack on air.
Oh my God.
He was just sitting at ringside doing commentary. Yeah.
It's always a risk with any broadcast program is that things can sometimes go wrong that are completely unexpected.
Well, and the hell of it is that when you go between different companies, you're going to see different attitudes towards how they treat people in those moments. Mm-hmm. So, Brad, check me on this, but I'm having a hard time. Went wrong in the then and there, and they were like, nope. We're pulling this up. I'm having a hard time conjuring an example.
There's been some WWE. If you watch, I don't know if AEW does it, but if you watch WWE and the ref does an X, that someone got hurt.
Yeah. But the show stopping, they being like, nope, we're out, we're done, stop it, get out of here.
I know it's happened.
I know it has too, but I'm having a hard time remembering it. But the flip side is the one that bothers the hell out of me was the fact that what happened to Owen Hart, and were I in the seat, the decision would have been, nope, we're done. Can't kill it now. We are done. We are out. We are gone. And Vince was like, well, keep going. And whereas, and like I said, I know it's happened in AEW, but their response has been, nope, 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 just stop it. We're getting this person out. We're getting them out so that they can, get taken care of. God, I can't think of an example though.
Did they?
It's really bugging me.
Hey, I believe you.
Agreed.
Didn't they probably stopped stuff when Big E broke his neck?
Yeah, well, yeah, they did. That's true.
What?
Guy it was Ridge Holland gave Big E Langston a belly-to-belly suplex on the outside of the ring and dropped him on his head.
Ooh.
And so the vertebrae that's right below the first one in your neck, right below the skull, is the one that got broken. Big E is okay. He's up, he's around, he's fine, but I would never put money on him being back in the ring again.
Yeah.
He broke his.
Frankly, wouldn't want to see that.
He broke his C1. He broke the one right where his neck and head connect. So he's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious area to have a weakness. Yeah,
because people were acting for a while like he's gonna come back. It's like no, that's the one part of your.
That's career ending.
Yeah,
you're asking for trouble. Yeah, no. Life is precious. Life is precious.
Well, yeah, and the reason the Owen one pisses me off so bad, they do all of that. Owen's gone. He fell from the rafters in front of a pay-per-view crowd, and they just rolled into the next match, which featured one of his best friends, Jeff Jarrett, having to wrestle in the ring where Owen had just died.
Oh,
what kind of heartless dick do you have to be to do that?
Exceedingly.
So, anyway.
This actually is a perfect segue to going back to something you asked earlier about, prior exposure before you kind of cast that line for the two of us. Because I'll fully admit, I was in this is all just incredibly fake crowd until very recently. And the realization of exactly how not fake a lot of this is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's here, my left hip. My left hip's probably the in-ring injury I would have thought the least of at the time, but it's the one that's been giving me the most consistent problems lately.
The left what?
My left hip. I jammed my left hip during a match and then just got up and I'm like, nope, walking it off. We're doing this. And then, since the weather's changed, it's just ached pretty much continuously. I'm sorry, Bear, what were you going to say?
So talking about it being real, it depends on the worker too, because there's a funny story from Mick Foley's first book. So he idolized Terry Funk growing up, and he finally gets to work with him, and he's like, okay, he's like, here it comes, that famous Terry Funk punches. He's like, you actually hit me, and Funk's like, oh shit, you actually thought I was good.
Yep. Oh, hell, Cactus! All this time, you just thought I was really good. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So okay. So to kind of dovetail, what is you mentioned friends have we kind of started on this, and then we went into the Hell in a Cell. Other friends have given you recommendations. Why don't you give us some examples? You said there are hits and misses. What are some hits? What are some misses that you've seen?
Oh, that is gonna have to be me scrolling through some Discord history because they're snippets and clips and the like. And yeah.
Tell you what, then.
The best of time is not great.
Tell you what, I'll buy you some time. How's that sound?
Go for it.
To be entirely upfront and honest, whenever I was introducing them to this stuff, I did not only send AEW stuff. I fully admit these days that I just don't watch WWE because it's not for me. So, but I did send WWE stuff I enjoyed. The Roman Reigns cheekbones came out of watching The Shield versus the Wyatt family, which was a WWE match. A WWE match I enjoyed in the last number of years. Like, there's
That's
not been a hell of a lot that I really sunk my teeth into, but I really dug that one. But even at that point, the camera jitter stuff that you were talking about, that was mild compared to the later on. Brad, what was it? Something like 75 cuts in a 2-minute entrance
yeah.
or something like
It
that?
got really bad. I want to say like from like 2017 to like 2022, and I think he's gone now, so I think they've cut way back on it.
That was one of the things one of our friends linked, because that was a conversation we were having, is, hey, we've watched this and this is what we've noticed, and then one of our friends, Jeb, was like, oh yeah, here you go, here's a comparison of a WWE entrance from that era and a AEW one,
Yep.
and one of them had like 6 cuts and the other one had like 25.
Yep.
Yeah, I think AEW's gotten better because they were kind of falling into that trap for a couple of years, but I think they've gotten some different people on production that's really kind of pulled them out of that.
Yeah. I
Whoever
remember.
they've got on production has been doing a pretty bang up job of making sure that the cinematography, at least, is pretty good.
I mean,
So-
they're both way better than, like, if you watch like the Tyson Jake Paul fight, like Netflix had a ton of production errors on that.
I pointedly avoided that. It was always gonna be a shit show.
Yeah.
The undercard was fun, but like they had technical issues, but like the show itself had like a lot of production.
That fight
problems.
wasn't a fight, it was a Prime advertisement.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
go with that.
It was on this show a few weeks ago that I called it a fix from the get-go, but
Oh,
I
God,
thought
yeah.
that it was going to be a split decision draw as opposed to someone winning.
No.
I should have not discounted the pure ego of one of the Paul brothers.
Yeah.
But but my point still stands that it's the fix was in the entire time.
Oh, agreed.
So
Well,
let me see.
Going back through, like, again, it's going to be hard for me to give you specifics just because a lot of what we're being drip fed is like snippets and clips and like small bites. We haven't actually sat down and watched full matches or cards with most of our buddies who are like, hey, this is stuff you should look up on your own time. But some of it has been just delightful. Like, I'm looking right here at a clip of El Desperado, who is trying to ham it up, and then Starlight Kid just stealing the stage. 100% stealing the stage. I'm like, I have no idea who these people are, but this is just great.
Yeah.
Everything he's doing, she is hamming up harder, and it works. Like, it's
Here, let me throw a different question then.
Shoot.
Well, while you're scrolling, what is something that you hope you could or wish you had been able, not like a specific moment, maybe not a specific moment, but wish you had been able to be there live for? Like, for example, I have never in my life been in live attendance for an Undertaker entrance or a Final Countdown entrance. I really wish I could have. Just didn't work that way. Did you have anything that you've encountered like that you would be like, man, that's something I wish I could have seen live?
You want to
For
go
me, it
Yep.
would be the recent AEW at Wembley, because one of my best friends was there and got to
Yep.
see all that live, and I would have loved to have been there for everything that happened for that on UK soil where I'm from, with my best friend, with how the crowd seemed. That would have just been a really fun night. That would have been something I know I would have remembered forever.
That was actually the second time they ran that show in Wembley. The year
So-
before they ran it in Wembley as well.
Yeah,
Though,
but this would have been the one I would have wanted to be at, because my buddy was there, and it just would have been great.
and that's really the big thing for that particular show is that we have a mate who was there, and as we were watching it, we were commenting to him and just expressing like, holy shit, dude. The Final Countdown intro actually took me back to, so I was in high school band, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the one time we made it to state was a very similar, albeit far, far smaller energy, because I mean, you can't compete with a venue that big with that many people just utterly jazzed. but you kind of get a taste of it when the team comes out and everybody in the one half of the stadium is just on their feet having a go at trying to out volume everybody else around them. So something like a Final Countdown intro would have been a moment that I would have very much cherished.
Another thing I'd have absolutely loved to have done at some point, and maybe one day in the future. I'm a big fan of Motionless in White, and there's been occasions where they performed live for entrances, and that would have been fun too.
Who was the lady who when you look at a before and after pictures of her, on one side she's very straight-laced, hair back in a ponytail, kind of very doe-eyed, young and naive wrestler, and then on the after, she modeled a lot of her visual aesthetic on the front
On
man
Chris
for
Motionless, yeah, you're thinking of
Yeah.
Rhea Ripley. It's Rhea
there
Ripley.
you go.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
The first time I saw her in the full makeup, I'm like, that's a gender bent Chris Motionless. What is
Yes.
going on here? And
Yes,
it's like,
it
oh
is.
yeah, that is okay.
The really fun one for me with that is, as you know, Shad, I'm an artist, and when I was doing my initial, art school and doing all the things I was doing before I got involved with all the stuff that you've seen, I was doing face studies. And one of the face studies I decided to do to begin getting my skills in was I decided I'd draw Chris Motionless.
Okay.
When I initially posted it to my server of, hey, I've done this, what do you guys think? It was a 50-50 split because my skills weren't quite as good then as they are now as to whether it was Chris Motionless or Rhea Ripley.
Rhea Ripley. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. It's I would not have guessed that. So
But yeah, to really kind of drill down to what you asked, the real answer is it doesn't have to be a specific person or a
Mhm.
specific venue. It's a specific mood. The Final Countdown kind of encapsulates what I'm going for in just you get that entrance where everybody's on their feet, everybody's singing along or otherwise losing their ever-living minds because whoever it is, face, heel, doesn't matter, they have just the right energy that it makes everybody go, hell yeah. Because that is even in the crowd just a sort of vibe that lasts like in memory.
yeah, it's one that I came close, but and the Final Countdown has a special significance for Danielson because before Danielson had a stint, he was a huge indie guy. He was one of the big indie names. He got signed on to WWE in the late aughts, Brad? Is that right?
He was there in the early aughts and then the late aughts.
Okay, so yeah, and then had a run there, but they weren't going to shell out for the Final Countdown because WWE doesn't shell out for licensed music hardly ever. So he was using Ride of the Valkyries for it. To have him use that in AEW was a nostalgia callback as well as it was a whole feel good thing to do it anytime it really happened. So
Yeah,
it was
in fairness, WWE Europe wants like 50,000 per play or something. Like it's something ridiculous because they acquired.
They don't own it anymore. They sold that part of their catalog. So whoever has it now probably isn't charging as much.
So I miss again remembering that Danielson Swerve was my introduction, if you will. I actually missed his intro, but when they started jamming that out for the post match, I literally got goosebumps watching. I'm like, this crowd, he's got this crowd eating out of his hand, and that is something. Again, I don't have the wrestling background to really say it, but like I've been to a couple concerts where that is exactly the mood where you get the front man who as a break between tracks in the set, will start just riling everybody up to a frenzy. And by the end of it, on the good shows, literally anything they do is going to just cause a mass eruption from the crowd. And it's, again, that's, if you want a moment to be present for, if I could be present for it, it would be anything that triggers that. It doesn't have to be Danielson, but it has to be that
Okay.
that peak of the night.
Okay. Brad, did you have something that would fit in that category?
There's two, but it's more venues I would have liked to have seen wrestling at, which would have been the Sportatorium in Dallas and the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis.
Oh, you wanted those close, intimate, dirty buildings, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Mid-South Coliseum was like a 15,000 one, I think.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, just the classic venues for old promotions, like that have that mystique about them. The Sportatorium more than Mid-South.
Gotcha. All right. So let's see. What is happening right now that has your attention? I don't know how much you guys have or have not gotten to watch lately, but what's got your attention? What are you looking for?
So, because of, real life being what it is, we've got a lot of stuff going on. So I haven't actually been able to sit down and watch anything for a while now.
I can tell you what I'm interested in.
I think it's the same thing I'm going to say.
I really want to know how Hangman Page's B-bomb is growing.
Yes.
His Twitter account's been fabulous. Or
Yes.
Blue Sky.
To go from the last we saw of the man was him walking out of the ring after knocking the crap out of Swerve, to the next thing we hear from the dude is him growing B-bombs. Like, what?
He's been keeping the
He's keeper of the bees.
crazy angry guy energy going for a while. He just had a match with Switchblade Jay White at Full Gear. That was, Jay White's great, Hangman's great. It was a banger of a match. So
I have never seen somebody so aggressive about leaf litter before. That's that. You want to talk entertainment? This is where we start getting into the entertainment doesn't just happen in the ring.
There's this is a long time ago, but there was when the Hardy Boys and Briscoes were gonna have a match. They it's a hilarious way, like Jay Briscoe does this response to Matt Hardy where he's like doing his like edging on his property and stuff, like to respond to like
Weed Eater.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Look
there's
that
been
up
some.
now. I have not yet seen anything from the Briscoes that wasn't amazing, so I'm gonna have to see that.
Have you seen?
Yep.
Have you been subjected to Papa Briscoe yet? Because he's a treat with the whole Briscoe
Papa.
side.
Briscoe.
I don't think we have.
No.
We'll get a link together for that too.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I
Please.
can turn things back around on you for a moment because
Uh-oh.
we're the new people on the block,
Reversal.
and you guys have all the experience. What should we be looking out for at the present time?
So, okay, Brad, you go first, and then
You were about to say where I stand, and you just stopped before
I
could give you
needed a moment to.
You cut me off before I
Arsenal.
could do the bad joke. If you're not standing, you're sitting. You monster. Anyway,
Yeah,
Brad.
I'm like
sorry.
that.
Final Battle is coming up.
Let's see, it's going to be on Final Battle this year. Final Battle 2024.
Wrestle Kingdom's
Oh.
always good for.
God, coming here. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't say this, but the Continental Classic is
Oh yeah,
starting
that's a
up.
good one. That's a good one.
So, the Continental Classic is Ring of Honor Final Battle December 20th is going to be in the Hammerstein Ballroom. So that's going to be a big deal. Um, so anyway, Continental Classic.
Who
The
is the Hurt Syndicate? Sorry, you got me looking up Final Battle's
Okay.
card now because you got me curious.
Okay. Let one thing at a time. I'll do it this way. The Continental
yeah.
Classic. Kazuchika Okada has been wearing the AEW Continental title. The AEW Continental title has specific rules attached to it. 20-minute time limits. No one at ringside. Cannot. The Continental title is held like a regular title until the Continental Classic comes around, and whoever wins the Continental Classic is the new Continental Champion. There is the blue group and the gold group, and so they round robin through that, and whoever the people with the most matches coming out of each group are the ones that face off at the end for the title. And the Continental Classic is structured to just be banger matches, the story. And you can roll. Last year, part of it was Daniel Garcia was in the Continental Classic, but he was kind of the young buck, and I think he only won one match. But the story was that he went hard at everybody, and he never backed down, and he kept getting better, even if he only had one win out of it. Eddie Kingston triumphing at the end was huge over Danielson. That was a huge thing, was that he beat Danielson at the end. So the Continental Classic's going to be just baller as hell.
Okay.
The Hurt Syndicate. So originally this was a group that was in WWE as the Hurt Business. The manager is Montel Fontamius Porter, MVP, who was a wrestler, but he does managing stuff now with Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley. Shelton Benjamin has been a favorite of mine for 20 years. Like, Shelton Benjamin came out of Ohio Valley. He had teamed with Brock Lesnar as part of the Minnesota Stretching Crew. He's just such a freakish natural athlete that if you watch him in the ring and say, by the way, that guy's almost 50, you're going to go, no, he's not. He is.
What?
Benjamin's, yes. And they are straight up that good. So they've been having a feud where when MVP showed up, he tried to recruit Swerve away from Prince Nana, and Swerve said, piss off. And they took that personal. And so now Swerve's out for a bit with a separated shoulder. So we don't know where the Hurt Syndicate's going from here, but they're going to have some bangers. Probably see Adam Copeland return soon, formerly known as Edge, who has my favorite entrance music of all time. He's been having the Grizzled Vets last run tour kind of thing going on and doing good stuff. And the big storyline in AEW right now is the Death Riders. Jon Moxley he retired Danielson. He won the title off of him. Danielson said, when I lose this title, my full-time wrestling career is done. So Moxley beat him. And they were bros. They were part of the Blackpool Combat Club together. Moxley destroyed him. So now the former Blackpool Combat Club, now known as the Death Riders, what they're doing is just, like, they took Danielson out using an old Terry Funk spot of strangling him with a plastic bag. Like, that was how nasty that was.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
So the idea is Moxley is saying, I'm tired of everybody in AEW getting complacent and just collecting a paycheck and you all aren't hungry. You don't want it enough. So he's basically he and the Death Riders are beating the living hell out of everyone under the guise of beatings will continue until morale improves. And at Full Gear, it was Moxley versus Orange Cassidy, and they had a hell of a match. It was staggering. I knew full well going in what the outcome was going to be, but there was one moment where I was like, and so you've got Cassidy and the Conglomeration and Darby Allin being Darby Allin. It's going to ramp up. It's going to be good.
So when was Moxley? I'm literally taking
This
notes
past
right now.
Sunday.
This past Sunday? What was the event called?
It was Full Gear. AEW Full Gear 2024.
I'm literally taking notes because what you're describing, if this is going to be as awesome as it sounds like, then I want to watch some of the backstory, if you will, before this.
Oh yeah, the the promo videos for Full Gear, Tony Khan licensed November Rain to use for him because it was in November.
Nice. Okay.
All right, there you. And Brad, what about you? What would you recommend?
It's not good anymore because they don't have the workers for it, but I still consider the Royal Rumble to be the greatest gimmick match in like all of wrestling.
That's a really good point.
So I've got the question for you then, because again, 6 months is nowhere near enough time to learn all the lingo. Gimmick match. What makes a gimmick match?
I mean, anything really. Like, I mean, it's like a straight up singles one-on-one match with standard rules is kind of a gimmick match in and of itself because it does have its stipulations. But so a gimmick matches can depend on like the mentality of the promotion or like the culture of the promotion. So like if in like Lucha Libre, gimmick matches tend to be like stakes. Like it tends to be like you're putting your mask on the line, you're putting your hair on the line. Like you'll see in like older Southern stuff, we've been doing like like Memphis, and like the one we just watched was the challenger Coco Ware keeps losing, so he put his like parrot on the line to get another title shot. So it can be stipulations like that. It can be any deviation from like the standard rules that you'd see. So like no DQ, some form of how you win, like a cage match, even something like a battle royal can be just a gimmick match. So it's any sort of, I would say any deviation from a standard match, though I think you can call a standard match a gimmick match too.
Okay.
I think, at least in my head, Brad's right. Anything that's outside of a standard vanilla match would be a gimmick match. But for me, there's a threshold that it's got to be a gimmick match. The way I look at, there has to be a stated difference to it. Is it a submission match? Is it a last man standing? Is it a Texas death match? Is it a battle royal? That sort of stuff. Like,
Okay.
do you say outright what? If you have to say it's this kind of match, then you're telling me what the gimmick for it is.
Gotcha. Okay.
But like,
Sorry, Brad, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, that's fine. Like, so it can be that, but it can also be like, there can be outcomes. Like, there's they don't do it much anymore, but like back in the day, it might be like, oh, if you win this match, you get the manager for like 5 minutes or something like that.
You get to beat up the manager for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Or
sometimes they'll put there'll be like money on the line. Like there used to be like an Andre the Giant thing where you got money if you body slam. No. That wasn't on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was that was Andre the Giant Big John Stud.
Or Sergeant Slaughter back in the day used to have like he had what was like the Cobra Clutch, and if you could break the Cobra Clutch, you would get money from him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's see. Well, I think Brad, I agree with you about the Rumble. I mean, it has such potential to be such a special gimmick match with everything they can do with it. I suspect what happened, but I'm not 100% sure. But last few years, it's felt like it's not had.
They haven't had like a Chris Jericho type that knows how to call everything, and because that's been the issue I've noticed the last 3 or 4 years is they don't understand like the flow that the match is supposed to have, and so you get too many. So then you get too many people kind of congested in there, then they have to throw a bunch of people out, or guys are pretty much just getting tossed like almost immediately has been a problem some years.
Or there's no someone getting eliminated with no fanfare whatsoever.
Or there's too much filler too. There was that one a couple years ago. I think that Lesnar won, where like I would say like 22 guys like you didn't give a crap about.
Well, no, Lesnar did not win that one. But Lesnar was in there for like the first half of it.
Didn't he win the?
I don't think so, because I think
No, didn't he lose the
it's
title to Bobby Lashley and then he won the Rumble because we were saying like, oh, that was predictable.
maybe you're right. The first half of it, Lesnar was in there to set up Drew McIntyre kind of being the kryptonite to Brock Lesnar.
No, that was the next year I'm talking about. The one.
Oh,
where
that
Shane,
was the next. Oh,
the one
okay.
where
I'm
Shane
sorry.
got fired and he specifically, I think, eliminated Drew McIntyre and like completely undid the year
God.
before. Like, I think,
Yeah.
I think he won that one.
Okay. Then I've just got wires mixed in my head. So
Yeah.
let's well,
The other thing too is title matches can have different stipulations depending on the promotions you watch and stuff. So like if you watch like let's just go for an old one like Portland Wrestling, most of their like tag title matches are 2 out of 3 falls. Or if you watch like Chikara, the tag title matches are 2 out of 3 falls.
Chikara was another great mix of serious, really good wrestling and incredibly goofy stuff. Because Chikara is like where Eddie Kingston came up. Chikara is also where Dragon came from.
Dragon.
I am a bit fond of Dragon after you showed that to me. That was just
Hey,
absolutely ludicrous.
He's a huge dragon.
He
He
got
is.
he got
He's
murdered.
so huge they named him twice.
He got murdered eventually, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Alas.
Yes.
Shame.
It's a crying shame, yes.
Have you seen the clip of him being killed?
I didn't subject them to
think
that
I've seen
yet.
that one, no.
No.
It's this
I
guy
didn't-
doing
I
the
didn't send him
Viking
that.
gimmick, and like he pretty much his finisher was he would say off with his head and clothesline him, and he clotheslined his head right off.
Outstanding.
Fabulous.
Also,
Just for
Dragon is
kicks.
Eddie Kingston, in a
Not always, because that very first match, Eddie Kingston was doing the commentary for it.
well, he might have been doing that
Oh.
post
Maybe. Well,
production.
when that Dragon clip where you have the guy with the real thick New York accent, that was Eddie Kingston doing it. But so Brad, this is what I love is I love your story of how Chikara brought you back into watching.
Oh, do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Please tell us that story.
I kind of fell out when Chris Benoit murdered his family. So I watched for maybe another year.
Yeah.
But so there was about a 4-year period where I didn't really watch it all. And so I still posted on message boards and stuff. And someone had this GIF, and it was Chuck Taylor and another character called Ultramanus Black, who you should look up. He's hilarious. But also a death metal band musician. But so they're fighting in a playground, and the GIF is like Chuck Taylor coming down like a slide right into a chop from Ultramantis Black and selling it. And it's like it's not like a straight down like slide. It's like one of those like the ones
Swirly
that
slide.
Yeah, swirly slide. So I'm like, okay, I have to figure out what show this is on. So I got the DVD, and Chikara's a little more like lighthearted and stuff. Like I always talk about there's a character in there called Jacob Hammermeyer, and like his deal was he would come out and he would come out with his ring music. He would introduce himself like a ring announcer, and then his music would start, and then he would run backstage and come back out like he like doing his entrance all over again, like he had like just come out for the first time. But this gif of Chuck Taylor going down like a slide and getting chopped is how I kind of got back into wrestling, just because it was so funny.
That's excellent.
Do you guys remember the clip I sent you where the guy screams, "I'm gonna drown him," and then pitch the guy headfirst into the mural on the wall?
Yes.
That
Yeah.
was Chuck. That was Chuck Taylor that threw him, and that was from
Okay.
Chikara.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm again using the wise and knowing Googles to kind of put faces to some of the names you're throwing around. I pulled up Ultramantis Black. I'm like, whoa. Okay, the skull on a stick is a hell of a statement, man.
Yeah, he's a main character in Chikara. There's like Chikara's very comic book.
Okay. All right, tacking that one on the list then.
I got to go to one show. That was on my bucket list. So they came to Columbus one time and I got to go, which had the best healing I'd ever seen because they had stolen a water bottle for this shtick they were doing, the heals were, and they went to give it back to the lady, and like right as she went to reach for it, he dropped the water bottle, which was got like a
You
big
douche.
yeah, it got like a big reaction from the crowd. But
It's simple but effective.
I think I don't remember what service Chikara's on, but you can I could figure it out. But they're on like they're on a service, so you could like subscribe for like $8 a month and like watch all their shows.
Nice.
Awesome. Of course, the nice thing for us is there's just a bajillion things out there, but I'm so glad that we sort of have a guide through this because there's just so much and all the different terms and all the different names and all the different people and who's with what. I feel like the best way to get an advantage in finding your way as a new person coming into this is have a guide. Find a guide, love your guide, cling on to them.
You need somebody. You need somebody to curate the experience because there's just so much stuff. It's like I'm gonna drown if I try and dive into the deep end.
I'll be honest, that never gets better. Like via this show, like we've been watching for 27 years, and like we've found like crazy stuff. Like we watched, at one point, like an 8mm that was like Andre the Giant wrestling some guy in France in like the 60s.
Yep.
Like is a really
wow.
man. We've watched stuff from Japan, like it
is a big, wide array of stuff that exists out there with a lot of history behind it. And
because even he brought up Big Daddy as a joke, but the reason he asked that is the UK had the world of sport till the 80s, and he was like a big star in the early 80s, and his matches are absolutely terrible. But he was like a big star in the UK in the 80s.
Yeah, Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks had like a never-ending feud, and it was two really tall, fat guys who would just kind of like knock each other down, as I remember.
No, they didn't knock each other down. They just would run into each other.
So like a pair of drunken bears throwing paws at each other.
Here, I'll send you a picture. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
And like,
thankfully, that would have been a little bit before my time. But as I say, I was an idiot when I was young. I used to think that this whole wrestling thing was a shallow pond that wasn't worth wading into. And now I know it's an ocean full of interesting and eldritch things.
World of Sport's interesting. So it has a round system, so they wrestle for like 2 or 3 minutes, but it's very technical, like a lot of holds and stuff. But if you watch it, it's also very British because they're doing these shows and there are people in their like suits and like very properly attired to watch some wrestling. And the announcers are very British too. So if you want to, it's interesting and I enjoy the matches, but it's interesting. They had I don't know what property he's from. One of them was named Catweasel, and he was supposedly from some BBC show or something.
Okay, so I'm looking at the picture you just sent us, Shed.
Yeah.
The guy on the right is a character from Asterix the Gaul. You cannot convince me otherwise.
And the other thing is that the Giant Haystacks was, I think, like 7 feet tall.
Holy cow.
He wrestled in WCW briefly as Loch Ness, but he was just staggeringly immobile. And his finish was an elbow drop.
Staggeringly immobile.
The man's a brick.
Now,
Lord.
there's a really funny clip on YouTube where he was on a British talk show, and they asked him about it, and he's kind of giving them a canned answer, and they're laughing at him because he's like, well, I wanted to use something I could use my skill and intelligence toward, and they're laughing because he's got a very bland way of talking. Mm-hmm. But you can tell he's just super disengaged. He is very not happy with how they've been treating him. And then he goes, the guy's like, oh, I understand you were going to do a move to me. He goes, well, I'll be doing half of my signature maneuver where I do a slam and then I do a splash. But given the floor here, I will not be doing the splash. And you can guess how well that goes for him. It's kind of like Hulk Hogan and Richard Belzer in the 80s, except more so. Hogan was a guest on Belzer's show, and he asked Hogan to put him in a hold, so Hogan puts him in a front face lock, and then Belzer starts talking shit. And he's like, oh, come on, is this the best you can do? And then Hogan tightens it up, and Belzer just passes out.
Yeah.
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 So yeah.
Don't taunt the guy that is involved in an incredibly physical sport and then ask him to put you in a position of potential bodily harm.
Yeah.
The Navy has an acronym for that. NASA.
No apparent situational awareness.
So while we got a minute, what is something you guys would want to throw at the two of us that if you've got
Does a frozen flounder count?
if you've got questions or anything like that, you would want to ask two guys who have been in this so long?
If there was one thing you could completely forget just so that you could go back and re-experience it for the first time again, what would it be?
Oh, wow. That's not where I thought that question was going.
So, like, a particular event or
Something that was just such a key moment that if you could relive that for the first time again, for that emotive experience it gave you, what would it be?
Luger beating Hogan for the title on Nitro probably would be it for me.
Lex Luger beaten, yeah. That's a really good answer.
1997 just for the year.
Yeah. God, that's really... I remember watching that live.
Yeah, I watched
and
it
then we
live,
went back and reviewed it. It was Nitro 100 if you want to go back through our list, but God, man, to be there live for that would have been I remember watching it live, and I just had a smile on my face as I went to bed, so that's a really good answer.
My non-wrestling answer would be to see Lord of the Rings Two Towers in theaters for the first time again.
Also a good choice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That was a good time.
That was the last. That is the last time I did like a midnight opening, because I think when I got out it was like 4 a.m. and I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
No, that makes sense.
I came so close. I was like one caller off from the local radio station when Return of the King was still new. There was a triple feature in theaters of all three back to back to back.
Oh.
And the local radio station was doing one of those call in at the station's number. You know, it was 99, so the ninth caller gets tickets. I was number 8. I'm like, damn it.
I'm just thinking of how...
I would like to go back and see Godzilla -1 on the big screen again, because I went twice because I was like, I need to see this on the big screen again. But
that was King of the Monsters for me.
that's a good
Just
choice.
the moment he and Godzilla and Ghidorah start throwing hands, like, oh, this is childhood taken all over again.
I would redo.
So Shad.
I'd redo the Canadian Chris's beating the Stone Cold and
two-man
Triple H on Raw. That's still like one of my favorite live watched moments ever too.
I never went back and watched that one again. I
I
watched
need to
that
get it
one
on the show.
live.
That's probably, in my opinion, the best WWF tag like ever.
You know what? I agree with you, because it's hard because Benoit's in it, and that was still it's still hard to watch. But now I'm sitting here trying to think back on other stuff that would...
I mentioned it already, but what about seeing Mike and Eddie for the first time again? Just for like a show, or Andre and Stan Hansen. First time again.
Yeah, that's... I don't know that I would go back to that one, because it was just... I don't think I could replicate the experience when you're like, yeah, we'll watch this for it. It's Andre versus Stan Hansen. I was like, what? And then I sat and watched it. It's when my desk wasn't here. It was over behind against the other wall. And I turned it on, and it started, and I just watched the whole thing. Like, You know, I was enraptured by
Hell of a
how that
facial
match went.
expression.
You got to sell it, man.
You do.
But if I'm going to try and stretch it out to a live performance for anything,
I mean,
oh.
it doesn't necessarily have to be live. Just
well, aside from the things we've already mentioned, that's the difficult part.
Yeah.
Is aside from the stuff that we've mentioned, because
What about Sting
it's
DDP from Nitro?
oh god, my brother was there live for that one. I wasn't allowed to go because he went with his buddy, and I was like, oh,
Or what about the
see that one.
Spring Stampede 4-way main event?
Yeah, God, that was really good too. We've been doing this so long that Brad can almost call my spots for me.
Well, I'm just throwing stuff out there I know you've liked.
Yeah. Well, and I'm trying to come up with other new stuff. You know what? Here,
I got one for
here's,
you. How about
Yeah.
Sting and Mike Rotunda from '89 that we watched?
That was really good too. No, I'm gonna throw a curveball for it though, just because of how both surprisingly good and how engaging it was. I don't know if it was 1998 or 1999 Halloween Havoc, Diamond Dallas Page versus Goldberg.
It was '98. That's a good choice.
That's because that match is it's harder to do without knowing all of the aura going into it.
The problem in a vacuum, you need the context to it because to give context, since you don't know what we're talking about, so Goldberg did this big, huge undefeated streak, and he was kind of like this unstoppable monster, and he had won the world title, and this is like the first time like someone had him on the ropes and like he really had like cracks in the armor.
This was the first time that you could credibly believe that Goldberg lost, because Diamond Dallas Page's gimmick, aside from being the scrappy everyman, was that his diamond cutter finish, he could hit it from anywhere, anytime, on anybody, and someone kicking out of the diamond cutter almost never happened. And so you have, it's not only these two things colliding, but it's also the fact that in the course of the match, the storytelling deprives Goldberg of one of his primary weapons.
which one?
So over the course of it,
shoulder during the match.
So over the course of it,
the sort of thing I'd find really compelling.
okay. Hang on, let me write that down.
Put
I already have.
Aiden is taking notes.
So
well,
I'll give you one since that piques your interest. So do Lex Luger versus Barry Windham from Chi-Town Rumble '89, because that revolves around Barry Windham, who is the bad guy, suffers an injury that pretty much takes all of his big moves out of the match, and him trying to compensate for it.
Wyndham versus
Lex Luger, and it's the Vince Chi-Town Rumble '89.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. So
Luger.
This actually segues into the one that I was gonna throw y'all's way, since the invitation was extended. So right now I'm aware of and have kind of watched at least snippets of two kind of plot lines that have extended between events. The Swerve Page, I don't even know what to call that, considering everything that went into it.
I mean, Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland didn't have a feud; they had a war.
Yeah.
The hell of it is, right up until it went over the line, Hangman was right, but the crowd was behind Swerve.
You've got that. You've got Danielson's final countdown, as in, I'm going until I get retired by somebody. Like, there's a couple different story through lines that we've picked up on since we picked up watching these events. What would you two say is probably, I don't know if I want to phrase it as the most iconic or the best conceived and executed story that you can think of, because that you're the part of how you hooked us was you described this as violent Shakespeare, right?
Yeah.
And part of why that actually struck home is that there is storylines, there are narratives, there are plot arcs and character development arcs, like if we were watching a TV series or reading a novel series, and that where is the best writing
Okay, so
by y'all's appreciation?
I can just start listing stuff because that's kind of like trying to pick your favorite child.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's not wrong.
so I'll throw
Well,
out
that just tells you how passionate you guys are about this.
Yeah.
So please do.
so I'll
Pick
throw
your
out
favorite child.
the Mega Powers storyline in WWE goes over the course of a number of years, and that's Hulk Hogan and Macho Man pretty much like forming a part-time team and eventually like breaking up. And there's a lot of twists and turns to that. And then I would say we just did it recently. Like it's again Macho Man, but so this one has like more to it. So like with Memphis, they had like an outlaw promotion that Randy Savage and his family was running called ICW, and it closes and he joins Memphis. So they pretty much have like him invade Memphis, and it's kind of like a year-long storyline of just Macho Man being Macho Man. I would say the Bret and Owen Hart feud in '94 is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a singular match, but I like the build-up to Cody and Dustin.
That's true.
Double or
That's really
Nothing.
good. Early AEW, Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes.
The BDK
all right.
and Chikara is pretty good. That is over a number of years, and it has some more fantastical elements. We did it on the show. I think the Ring of Honor versus CZW angle
Yes.
from like the aughts that ends with like them having a giant cage match is a good storyline. The NWO is interesting. Very counterculture for the 90s. That's pretty much like Hogan turns heel and joins up with like former WWF guys, and they wreak havoc on WCW. And I would say, well, it was kind of against their will, but like the Bryan Danielson run in WWE is pretty good.
Yeah, his win at Mania 30 was a big... Yeah. So it was not supposed to be that. Danielson was over like crazy, which is not shocking because, you know, Bryan Danielson is one of the best to ever do it. But to see... he comes into the Rumble and he gets pitched out unceremoniously. And the crowd the crowd craps on everything else, to the point where the crowd actively rebels against everything else they're trying to do. So they have one of the few times that Vince changes course. Danielson has to have 2 matches at Mania 30 to win the title. And the story is that Triple H is saying that Danielson is good, but he's not a top guy. He's a B+ player. And it's Danielson's story of overcoming that. It ends at Mania 30 because just stop there.
I will take your word for that.
So, some stuff to add on to it. I'm going to say, and some of this is going to be a little more recent, but Brad mentioned the NWO angle. I'm going to say the angle leading to this was really good. The execution at the end, hit the bed, was Sting's return in 1997. Was just, it had everybody salivating for it. Everyone was looking forward to it.
So what
Andy
happened,
Kaufman.
if you don't mind me asking. Sorry.
So they
Hogan got Hogan.
So the storyline is so the NWO is kind of running roughshod over everything, and like things happen. So Sting kind of gets pissed off at everyone, and he starts painting himself like the Crow well, you've seen what he looks like now. So he used to kind of, they call him Surfer Sting. So he used to have like a blonde buzz cut and like bright,
Bright colors,
yeah,
yeah.
bright colors. Which actually, some of the older bookers struggled with him because like he started doing that in like the late 80s and he was like very 90s before 90s was a thing, and like they didn't understand how to like book like a modern guy at the time. So he switches to that and he just starts hanging out in the rafters. And he doesn't wrestle for like a year or something like that.
Year and a half.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
going to make my visual storytelling brain so
And then
happy.
he pretty much just shows up from time to time and just destroys like every one in his like path. And they kind of, there's like a time frame where you don't know if who's he's gonna side with, and he eventually is against the NWO, but pretty much it'll just be like he would just show up at the end of shows and like turn the tide like against the NWO.
Because every show would end with the NWO running in and just beating the hell out of whoever they're having a match with.
Mhm.
And Sting was mad because whenever it first happened, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you. I'll let you go through that yourself. But at the very end of it, Hulk Hogan has to protect himself, so he screws the ending up on it.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions for you guys was, a lot of what I love about everything you've introduced me to is the storytelling elements. And I really like it when matches flow like a song where you've got a verse and a counter verse and a refrain. It's great. If you could go and change one storyline or one moment that you think just ruined what should have been a great storyline, what would it have been?
Let me give you my recommendations, give you the rest of them
Sure,
real quick, and then
please.
I'll answer that for you.
Please.
Other stuff, Sting versus Big Van Vader in the early and mid 90s, because Big Van Vader came in and killed everybody. And the story is Sting's the superhero. He's the good guy. He's the ace of the company. Every time he faces Vader, he's doing a little better, a little better, a little better. It's a very Japanese storyline. Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler feud was just excellent.
And you get the iconic, their iconic like Letterman appearance. Have you seen?
Yeah.
Have you seen their Letterman appearance?
no.
Okay.
So if you go on YouTube, you can find a documentary called "I'm from Hollywood," and it's about Andy Kaufman going into wrestling. Then here, Brad, here's one: the final confrontation.
Oh
The
yeah,
countdown,
that's a good one.
which is Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood versus Sergeant Slaughter and Don Kernoodle. Just go on that ride. We did a series on it. It's all on YouTube. You can find all of that.
They have the show, but you can find like they have the whole angle like spliced together from all the shows, and like
Yes.
there's literally like twists and turns to that like there is like a massive plot turn that you don't see like coming.
Okay.
For more recent stuff, Eddie Kingston's story against Danielson was just really good because Danielson was the one always saying, Eddie, you're not good enough. You don't have my respect. And then the other one, which is why I'm such a Hangman Page fan, do or die, and it started from the beginning of AEW into 2 or 3 years in for them to pay it off, I think, Brad,
Yeah.
was the story of Hangman Page overcoming himself to finally to go to his full potential. It is, God, I'm a fan of that guy forever. And I sit here and he's doing so good as a heel, but I'm like, can I have good guy Hangman back? Because I miss good guy Hangman.
So if we could change
one thing.
I'd
the
probably
idea
put
of a good guy named Hangman.
Fine, it's fine. Don't think about it.
I'd probably
Don't worry about it.
I would have probably put the title on Luger in '88.
Wait, what did they do then? Was that when they put it on Sting?
No, that's when like he and Flair were having that program that was drawing, and then because there were backstage problems, like Luger, like remember that like he was supposed to win it at Starrcade, and then they stopped it because of blood, I think, or it was like his last chance at the title in 1988, and he lost.
Yeah, it's one of the nefarious pumping the brakes on Luger when they didn't need to
like
thing.
I would have probably done that. I'm trying to think of.
Well, having Luger actually beat Yokozuna at that SummerSlam would have
Yeah,
been a
you
good
can
one
kind
too.
of you can kind of do that with Luger numerous times. What?
I mean, to have Starrcade '97 end properly the way it should have, where Sting as the mythical hero shows up, beats the living hell out of Hogan, and then defeats him and takes the title away from the NWO, would have that goodwill momentum would have carried them, but they screwed it up. And to be honest, that still kind of pisses me off because it was right there. It was gift wrapped. They had everything ready.
It's that right there that's why I care about the thing that you love and wanted to understand, is because you care. That there's the passion, there's the I've followed this, I understand the stories, I understand these characters, I care about this, and also this is really cool and other people should like it too. It's nice seeing the things that annoy people because they weren't brought to fruition the way that you feel they should have been. That's
can do
how
that.
you know people care.
You can do that with a lot of WWE stuff too.
Yeah,
There-
Sting
there's
beating
believe
Triple
it.
H.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
Um,
like, historically, like there are results that like just kill promotions dead. Like
Yeah.
there have been times, like especially like older promotions, where they just never draw the same again. Like, I think it was Toronto. They brought in Andre the Giant to beat like the Sheik, who is an older wrestler. He's actually related to Sabu, but he was like a big wrestler in Detroit and like where I live for a long time, and like he was like a heel, and they brought Andre in, and then Andre lost by like count out because he used a fireball on him, and then they never drew anymore because people lost hope that he'd ever lose.
Yeah. If Andre couldn't beat him, then there's no point.
But
There's
they
a
probably
lot.
haven't. Have you guys seen someone get a fireball in wrestling yet?
No,
Okay.
Get you another link. The there's a lot of WWE stuff that falls into it. As much as I can't stand the guy, there was a CM Punk quote that filled it in very nicely. Nothing in WWE is as good as it has the potential to be, or nothing there is as good as it could be. And they had a monopoly for 20 years, and it showed. Like,
Ooh.
yeah, it showed.
It doesn't matter what you're talking about. If you look at any entertainment medium where you have that sort of thing going on, especially when you've got grandiose characters who are perhaps in charge of certain things, you tend to see a lot of that coming in if there's no competition.
Yeah.
It allows people to get complacent, it allows them to get arrogant. And I imagine as well that one of the things that can really throw a spanner in the works with wrestling is this is an active, athletic style of entertainment. Somebody gets injured, well, there goes any plans that you had if you're going to allow that person to heal.
That'll
that
happen.
Forces you to change things.
Well, and so like where being a monopoly is bad. So like in the 90s, WWE actually had to change a lot because they started losing to WCW, because WCW kind of started becoming a more countercultural, very 90s promotion, and WWE was still doing this like cartoony stuff, and then they realized they had to change what they were doing. So I think
you have to up your game because there's somebody else in town, and now you've got and that's always the benefit of the customer, no matter what it is. If you've got people in competition, it's going to give you a better end product as a consumer, whatever it is that you're doing.
And sometimes you just need someone to think outside the box so you could steal it too.
Yeah, new ideas coming in from people that you might not have paid attention to otherwise, definitely.
Sorry, I got a message from friend of the show, Justin. It's like, now I got to wing that back to him. Let's see. Other things that could have been better. You know what? Here's one. Making sure that we never have the Undertaker and Sid face each other probably would have gone a long way towards helping things.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it was. Okay, how can I best phrase this? I think this is right, but if I have the year wrong, then this is gonna ruin the joke. But Undertaker and Sid main event happened to have Sid shit his trunks a little bit, and that was not the worst thing in the ring.
Oh no.
The match was that bad. It was atrocious. It was atrocious.
Sid isn't a great worker, but he was like riddled with the flu, so it wasn't going to be good. But then he was like sick as a dog.
Oh,
He was really
a
sick.
confluence of terrible things.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, it's not to short sell Sid Vicious either. The dude was better than a lot of people give him credit for. It's kind of like a 0.5 Ultimate Warrior in terms of like the character assassination that WWE went through with Ultimate Warrior for a while. And not saying that Warrior was a stand-up guy, but I mean they went full bore to bury him. Sid kind of got that narrative for a while too of not being any good. Well, no, Sid was good, but he had to play to his strengths. And the problem is that if you match Sid up against The Undertaker, then neither one of them plays to their strengths, because you have different stripes of the same gimmick in the ring against each other. It's like, wow, this is gonna suck, and it did.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to think of other stuff.
This is a Japan one. No one's gonna know what I'm gonna talk about, but there was I think it was the end of 2005. I would have had Jun Akiyama beat Kenta Kobashi for the GHC title. I think that's the year. I'd have to look the date up, but they're like, just Kenta Kobashi had this really long reign in Japan, and it kind of went on too long, and then who he lost it to kind of was underwhelming and didn't work, and it kind of started to go downhill after this match. So I would have changed that.
Who did he lose it to?
Rikio, I think, is who he lost it to.
Okay.
It did not. He didn't like.
No. It's the fact that I just barely know that name says that he did not make the splash.
The fact I can't
No,
remember
there's
his
the
first
movie.
name.
Yeah,
There's the
Rikio.
movie.
I've seen. Yeah,
Rikio at the movie is definitely a thing. You don't get
Yeah.
that once you've seen it.
So at some point, I will make the list and subject you all to some of the worst matches I've seen after I'm sure that the hook is fully embedded.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
Oh
gotten
my
rid of I wouldn't have gotten rid of the IWGP title in New Japan. That's a big one I wouldn't have done.
Yeah, they switched to the current
Crap title.
thing.
So they took a title that had like 30 something years of history and switched it to like a standard world title. And like, because they want it to be a world title, but like when it doesn't have like the like, I know it's like a worked sport, but when it doesn't have like the gravity of like 30 years of history, like you don't care as much.
Yeah. It was what was it? The International World Grand Prix title? Was that what they called it?
It was.
Is that what IWGP stood for?
It was. I think so. It was like
Okay.
it just for an idea. It's like kind of the sanctioning body, like it would be in boxing. It's kind of how the IWGP title
Okay.
works.
Yeah,
Now,
Matt was just confirming that it was Takeshi Rikio.
now,
You were right.
if you want a cool side one, so All Japan was the other big promotion for a while in Japan, and they eventually like merged three belts into the Triple Crown title. So for a long time, if someone had the Triple Crown title, they had three belts they carried around.
Which is a really cool visual.
That's almost as many belts as a JRPG protagonist.
And then Ultima Dragon, there was the J Crown that didn't last super long, and that was like, I don't remember how many, it was like 6 or 8 titles. So like Ultima Dragon would come to WCW and he would have all these belts that he won in this.
Yeah, I would. Hang on, because there's the picture for it. I'm looking for
It's him
that.
holding like
Here it
3
is.
on each arm. And
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 belts.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
'Cause
I just found the one you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
So that
And
So that tournament's on YouTube if you're interested. It's called the J Crown Tournament. It happened in '96. So what they were going to merge all these belts. So each match of the tournament has 2 champions, and then as guys progress in the tournament, they win that belt. So guys have more and more belts as they go to the final match.
was that the NWA belt there as part of that, Brad?
Yeah, I believe the NWA belt. The WWF, the original version of the WWF light heavyweight titles in there too.
And WCW television titles in there. I'm looking at the breakdown. Yeah, there's the NWA. Light heavyweight, yeah, WWF light heavyweight.
He would have
There's
had the
an
New
England
Japan.
title.
He would have had the New
Okay.
Japan junior title. He would have had it. I don't think he would have had the All Japan one. He would have had the War title.
Yeah.
Can I just make the comment that the phrase light heavyweight is going to give me a mild stroke in a moment?
That's why I like the phrase cruiserweight for that better.
Or,
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense.
They were in the 80s
like-
and stuff. It was the junior heavyweight, which I think is better than light heavyweight too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like going and paying a visit to New Old Town or some shit like that. It's like, what?
You mean you don't think about going to Old New York?
No.
My brain hurts now.
Yeah, I know. I'm not helping.
I was gonna
No.
give you some shade for seeing the smoke when you were trying to think earlier, but now, I smell burnt toast.
I was
Yeah.
gonna make a new Amsterdam joke, but I didn't think we should get into the. They might be giants
Yeah.
on here.
Old New York was once New Amsterdam.
Yes.
Why they changed it, can't
They
say.
used to have a random phone line you could call, like that would just like randomly play like a song from them. I don't know if that's still active. But
So let's see. I'm trying to think of any. We blew through all the questions I had written down, so I'm trying to think of anything else to do. Brad, have you got anything tickling your brain here?
I'm trying to think. So
Yeah.
Well, I can at least make a comment real quick,
for it.
and
Go
it's
for it.
completely unrelated. I see the Bloodborne board game in the background.
oh, I haven't opened that yet, but yeah.
Hell yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah.
Sorry, like
I got it
I'm a-
on
I'm
sale.
a-
anyway.
I'm a big FromSoft sucker, so I saw that. I'm like, oh yeah, and that looks like, is that Arkham Horror behind you as well? Not on the counter, but below. Yeah, I'm
oh, yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
geeking out on board games
Yeah.
because that's like something that I really am a big
Which
fan
one
of.
is- Oh, this is this one. I have Arkham
Yeah, that
Horror
one.
and Eldritch.
Oh, okay, that was
Oh,
Eldritch Horror.
nice.
Okay, similar logo. I couldn't read it.
I have
So
the, I have
okay,
the card game too, but it's not.
Yeah,
not in
To
sight.
bring back to topic, I know I've asked Shad this before, and he knows why because of nonsense I've been involved in. But do you, Brad, happen to have a favorite wrestling poster?
do you know the Muffin Man? No, sorry.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit of a weird one, but it's born out of the fact that art is what I do, and wrestling poster nonsense gives me great pleasure.
I
Problem
get
is, there's
that.
so many good ones. Like I love like the old like event posters from like the 80s and the 70s and stuff. Like
Mhm.
those event ones I really love. I'm trying to think. I'd have to think
Sound
about
is
that.
sizzling
okay.
bacon in the background.
Problem
Okay.
is like
now
that
I've got
kind of
the-
goes into brain overload for me.
Yeah, it's
Bit of a
hard
peculiar
because there's
question.
so many to pick.
Well, 'cause I
There's
was
so
into-
many to pick from.
I was like, I was into like, because they used to be back way back in the back in the day they used to do programs for them, and I was collecting
Mhm.
those for a while, and there would be some interesting designs there and stuff. But like the old event posters from like the 70s and the 80s are interesting just to see like who's on the card and kind of the design and stuff, and but I can't think of like, there's probably some Chikara ones honestly, because Chikara would do theirs like very comic booky.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Alright.
they would like rip off like actual comic covers and just like switch their characters in.
Which is the ultimate way to do art, is to plagiarize horrifically and then make it your own.
I think there was one. It was like, I don't know if that was like an official one. It was like they ripped off the original Marvel RPG game that like the makers of Dungeons and Dragons released. They like ripped off the cover of that RPG from like the 80s.
Okay.
That sounds fun. That sounds very fun.
Oh, there's a poster. Chad just linked this.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was
that's
from
great.
the Starcade '97. Um,
So I
So it-
recognize Hulk Hogan. Who's the other one?
Sting!
Gotcha.
Can't let that get away from us. Let's see here.
Also, I have to say, I'm very proud of you. We went how long into this before you started gushing about Sting?
We'd already been talking about Sting, dude. What are you?
About an hour and some change in.
No, we were talking about Sting earlier. You were recommendations for stuff for storylines that I really liked. Sting versus Vader, Sting and Hogan, Starcade '97. Like,
Did bring up Starcade '97, and that logo is so '90s. I love it.
yeah, it
It
is.
really
So
is.
'90s.
Oh. I look at that and I'm taken back to the old movie theaters of the 90s when I was a kid. I'm
Right.
like, oh.
Yeah, like the you've got the oh god, like the weird minimalist two zoomed in posters like for Ravenous or something in the theater,
Yep.
where it's just the guy's mouth open like too close to the.
The logos, the Starcade and the bottom right corner, the WCW Live logo, just looks like my memories of Blockbuster.
But also that pink banding at the top and then white banding at the bottom with the actual engagement
Nope.
in between. There's just so much that goes on with visual design. And I was saying right back at the start that one of the things with wrestling is that it's pervasive. It gets kind of into everything. A lot of people, even if they're not into wrestling, can probably name a wrestler or something that's been influenced by it. And I think when I sort of think back, the Attitude Era just seemed to bleed out into my generation's culture, regardless of whether you were dealing with wrestling or not. It was just everywhere.
Yeah,
It hit the zeitgeist.
It did.
yeah, it did.
And
It
you're sort
did,
of
and
seeing the before times of that.
the worst part though is that if you go back to that era, like the stuff at the top of the card in the WW at the time F was good stuff, but then you start getting into the lower card stuff and it is it's rough.
Yeah.
It's not good. To look at it now, you look at it, oh, okay. So the reason that a booker at that time named Vince Russo, a lot of people hated his guts, was doing like a false miscarriage angle and shit like that.
It's amazing how often that turns up in media. You think people would learn after the first time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah. So there's a lot of that kind of thing in that happened in the Attitude Era that people don't talk about.
Yeah.
They don't
And
remember,
so-
and they don't remember like the matches were like 3 minutes long and terrible. And
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff that gets memory hold because it's like, oh, the Attitude Era was so great. It's like there's a reason I was on the WCW channel more often.
I feel like the Attitude Era was memorable potentially rather than great. Because
yeah,
as somebody who wasn't watching at the time, when I think about that era, and instantly I can go, yeah, the Attitude Era, because I know that was a thing. And I know
Mhm.
it was a thing because of the visuals that were attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And they were very memorable. Whoever did a lot of that design knew what they were doing. Whether it was to the good or the bad, I can't say, but it was certainly iconic.
it
I mean,
did.
talking about memes before memes were a thing.
Basically, yeah.
Well, I'm saying I remember the TV commercials. Raw is war. I'm like, I have no idea what this is, and I've never seen any of it. But that is still taking real estate in my brain meat because they kind of had the ability to just cause it to just leach into the psyche by osmosis.
I mean, it was catchy and
Yeah.
it stuck.
It had a lot of bad tendrils though. Like booking wise, it caused a lot of problems, like burning through like matches too quick. A lot of the workers, not necessarily I would not necessarily blame WWF for this, but a lot of the people from that era died young because of like uppers and downers and like the travel schedule and stuff, and brain damage from places like ECW. But yeah, that's kind of the negatives to that era.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And like people like always like bring it up. They're like, "Oh, they need to go back to that." It's like, "No, you don't remember how bad it was."
What
you-
specifically do you mean by that? Because perhaps the things you remember, yes, but the things that were actually going on, perhaps no.
They want like
Oh, nostalgia.
I think they want like I think when people say that, they want like I think they just want like that it's new and everything's like interesting energy back to it, not the like I've been watching for 20 years, like I've seen everything, like that sort of thing.
if you ask them, tell me what you want back from that, then what's going to happen is they're going to tell you, they're going to say, in my experience, so grain of salt, but they're going to say Steve Austin, they're going to say The Rock, they're going to say The Undertaker, and then maybe they'll have another name in it, like they might say Kane or somebody, but they're going to say like those names, and they might say DX.
It feels to me
But-
like it's going to be very specific things that they're remembering that were important to
Yeah.
them at the time that it happened, rather
they're
than
not-
something that was a core tenet of what was
Right.
going on at the time.
They're going to remember, oh, those guys were awesome. It's like, okay, like what are we talking about? Like,
I mean, It's
give
like
me a little more, like, or because I can't remember which Mania it is, Brad. You'll check me on this, but there was a Mania where Rock Austin was the main event. It was a really good main event, but the rest of the card.
Are you talking about the one where they had the brilliant idea to have Billy Gunn and Road Dogg win the title the other one was going for and like screwed the whole undercard up? That would be 14. No, that would not
That
be
was-
14. That was 15.
15? Okay. I know that, or there was one where everything except the main event was a multi-man thing,
That was
so there were no stakes.
no. I think even wasn't that 2000? I think even 2000 the main event was like
Yeah.
a four-way.
You're right. Let me look at the listing on Mania 15, because yeah, we got someone in chat saying 15. Let me
Yeah.
pull that real quick, because it was I know there was one of them that was just a godforsaken mess. Let's see. Jacqueline, Ivory, D'Lo, and Tess with okay, that was what the hell? Oh, that was a battle royal. That was the battle royal. Yeah, it's 15. Oh god, that was where they threw Bart Gunn out there to get killed. They threw together a tag team to just feed to Owen and Jeff Jarrett because they didn't have anybody else built up to.
They
for
had to do
that.
that battle royal in the last two, like on the pre-show, and the two
Yeah.
that won got the title shot.
Yeah, elimination match for the Intercontinental title. 4 Corners elimination, because it was Road Dogg, Gold Dust, Ken Shamrock, and Val Venus.
That had that
There was a-
terrible. That had the terrible. Was it Taker and Boss Man in a cage? Hell in
Yeah.
a Cell. I think
It was Hell in a Cell.
I think the only other good match on that card was Sean Waltman and Shane McMahon.
I just am
Um,
flabbergasted hearing you rattle off these names like ghosts from the past, because again, never having watched any of this, I remember it from the game, like the N64 and Sega games that were the exposure I had. I'm like, huh, this is starting to now kind of all click into place.
yeah. Yeah, it was not a good show. And then, like you said, Mania 2000 was just a mess. Just get everybody on the card. That'll be good, right? Let's get everybody on there, because here I go to Wikipedia, even though Wikipedia hates wrestling. Oh, they do. A while back they went through, and because they're you
They
could
don't
go
do
there and be like,
lists, so they took everything that you like they took off like their like signature moves. Like if a manager, like they would take off all their clients, because Wikipedia doesn't do lists, even though like 90% of Wikipedia's lists, but you know their editors are morons.
Wikipedia's editors have their own unique flavors that they are catering to in many ways that affects more than just wrestling, unfortunately.
Yeah, they just
and
Yep.
it's
catering.
very sad.
They're
Yep.
just catering to themselves a lot of times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And then they,
I
ban
do
you
like
if you
to
try
cater
to.
myself.
And then they ban you if you try to actually correct something that's completely 100% factually wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah, the Mania 2000 tag match, hardcore battle royal tag match, triangle ladder match, cat fight match, 6-person intergender tag match, 2-fall triple threat elimination for the Intercontinental and European titles, tag match, and then 4-way elimination match. Everything was just, let's throw as many people into this thing as possible, and it was a mess.
I am quietly crying for the logistics people involved.
No joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And then 17's a good one, but the hilarious part about that is they did like a gimmick battle royal where they brought all these people back, and the Iron Sheik won just because he couldn't take a bump over the top rope to
Yeah.
be eliminated, so he had to win.
yeah. Shiki had to win that one. No, I'll not go over the top rope. I do not want to break my hip. Patooey!
Fantastic.
Sheik's a trip, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
God rest his soul.
ultimately, everything that you've sort of thrown in front of us and been like, hey, you might look like this, this should be enjoyable. We've just had a good time with it. And in today's day and age, and with all the pressures going on out there, it's just nice to have some engaging theatre with friends to sit and enjoy and stuff to talk about that we didn't have before. And it's been really nice.
It's
Go ahead, Matt. Or go ahead, Brad.
I was gonna say it's also like it's a field. It's like it's a subject you're never gonna like exhaust. Like there's always more stuff to dig into, or someone is like gonna find more of it. Because like part of the history of like fandom is in like the late aughts they found a lot of footage. So like when I was a fan in like the late 90s and early 2000s, it was way different because they found a lot of old stuff now. Like there's a YouTube page like the Chicago Film Archive. Just at some random point like 10 or 12 years ago, we're just like, oh hey, we have all these wrestling matches, and they just put them up there, like things like no one had ever seen like before or in a long time.
A bunch of Portland matches are just because Buddy Rhodes recorded them
Yep,
to watch his own
a lot of that
stuff.
survived because the
And
set, there's the Jim Cornette like garbage tapes that he just had. They were throwing them away and he took them. That's the only reason like we have stuff like Wahoo with his broken leg like doing the
media preservation is critically important, and it's lovely that stuff is turning up. That's great.
Yeah, because I know thankfully Doctor Who they have that down pretty low.
Yeah, they found a hell of a lot of that.
Well, I think they're down to like really the stuff they're never gonna find, like the stuff they only have maybe audio of or.
What was there was not that long ago somebody found a box of tapes that I don't think it may not have been Memphis, but it was territory of that era. They just happened to find this box of tapes in a closet, and they're like, what's this? And it was like this catalog of all of the stuff from that era.
Well, you can find they've gotten stuff from Japan, like handhelds that fans did because like someone happened to die, or they just found like these tapes someone had done that no one knew even existed. Because sadly in Japan, like the collectors there tend to hoard. So there's all sorts of stuff like that. But like Memphis for a long time, they just taped over it because the tapes cost money.
Yeah. So
because that's kind of an interesting side note of like wrestling is technology and wrestling have always like been intertwined. Like so like when VCRs hit, like wrestling fans are the first one to spend the money on VCRs because they wanted to tape it, and then that's kind of how it started. Like Dave Meltzer started as people back in like the late 70s and early 80s would tape wrestling, and then they would trade it. Like you'd be like, oh hey, I live at like in Ohio, hey Shad, what territory do you have? And we would tape it and we would send each other tapes
Yeah.
of the stuff.
Nice.
And there's the wrestling fans and porn were the first
Yeah.
adopters for VCRs. So, well, I think we're kind of winding down. So I want to say to Iden and Rowan, thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been really nice to have, frankly, have a different point of view that we don't get, because we're jaded and grumpy, and nobody hates something like a fan of it. So it's nice to have have a have a fresh perspective and that sort of thing. So we appreciate you all taking time out of your night to join us.
Appreciate you letting us come on to Ramble, and very much appreciate the curated inroads into a new interest. So.
Don't worry, I'm sure I'll ruin it soon.
No. But no,
Brad,
it's been great being here.
Brad, were there any other notes or anything you wanted to hit?
No, I do. I will filter some recommendations through Shad for you guys.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Love to have
Yeah.
them. Thank you.
Because I think you will appreciate some old school like blood and guts like tag stuff.
Oh,
that sounds-
yes, please.
that
That would be
sounds
right
up
up my
your alley.
alley.
You know what?
Yep.
You should send them that Sheep Herders Fantastics
Oh
Match.
wow, okay.
or the
Let me write that and add that to the list.
the Midnight's
Sheep-
the Midnight's
Sheep
Fantastics Clash 1 match 2.
I was saying,
So-
sheep herders. That sounds like what? Where are we going back to Wales now?
No, so
New Zealand.
Here's the-
The Velcro gloves.
you know them
Okay.
as under a different name.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brad. I know you
So
love this.
do you remember do you know who the Bushwhackers from the WWF are?
No.
All right.
Okay, so they were comedy
Sorry.
wrestlers in the WWF, but before they went to WWF, they were like hardcore brawlers.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
From New Zealand.
a lot of people know them as these like jokey New Zealanders, and then they like go back further and they're just bleeding everywhere and like,
Oh, fabulous.
Yep. The Sheep Herders Fantastics match is great because I was in the locker room a few times with Bobby Fulton of the Fantastics, and he was the kind of veteran that should be in a locker room. So he was great. I've got a signed action figure of him actually.
Yeah, I
Brad
just found
was
that.
with me.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Brad and I were at we went to a WrestleCon that a bunch of folks were at, and he was there. So
And there's a joke with Southern wrestling too. Back in the 80s, is if someone comes out in a white shirt, you know they're about to bleed like a stuck pig.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah,
put the
Yeah, as
should-
that visual storytelling again.
you should put that Tommy Rich angle from Memphis there. She'd like that one. The one where his mom comes out.
I'll try.
That one's
All right.
that one's purely an angle. There's no wrestling to that one, but like he's a bad guy and his mom comes out and this other wrestler comes off and starts mouthing off to her, and this whole like just massive studio brawl breaks out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
It's one of the most creative ways I've actually ever seen of turning someone into a good guy. He does an absolute bitch thing and has his mom go out there and plead his case for him. And then this guy goes to pick on his mom, and he comes out there to defend his mom. And it's just like, you say all of this out loud, and you're like, wait, what? But then you see it, and you're like,
No.
oh.
That's very simple storytelling because everybody can relate.
Yeah,
You don't fuck with mom.
yeah.
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 Don't mess with my mama.
Oh, Shad,
Yeah.
put the Tupelo concession stand brawl.
Oh,
in
right.
there.
Tupelo concession. Oh, my
I'm
God.
gonna have to actually take my vacation in December like I'm supposed to because I'm just
Yeah.
gonna be sat watching wrestling. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna have time for anything else.
You
Let me ask you a question.
hmm
Why is that a bad thing?
Because I've got a crap ton of work to do.
Because she's a workaholic that doesn't know how to take time off.
Well, if wrestling gives you a break to rest, then I'm glad that I could help. So, all right. Well, I think we can go ahead and say we're going to wrap right about here. But again, we appreciate y'all coming on. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate
And
you
then-
as well. Thank you.
Brad, I'll let you take us home.
Well, thank you for joining us as always. I don't know what we're doing next week because we have the holidays. It'll probably be a light and fluffy topic, and then we'll get back to some USWA footage. But thank you for watching as always. We appreciate you hanging out with us. We've been in, well, we kind of took up all the ring this week, but
They're tagged up. They're in one
Okay.
corner.
so thank you for joining us. We've been in 3 corners. You've been in the 4th, and we will catch you next time.